Another Wednesday's come and gone, and I've got some comics. Let's talk about them. Hey, welcome to 9 Panel Grid. This week, we've seen historical figures use magical artifacts, we've seen the House of L take on the House of Brainiac, and we've seen just what it took for a latchkey kid skater punk to survive in the 1980s. But we're going to kick things off this week with Absolute Powers Ground Zero #1, written by a variety of writers and drawn by a variety of artists. This is kind of setting the stage for the big summer tentpole event that DC is going to be having. And they pull in all of the creative teams from the primary books of all of the big titles here, whether it be Superman or Batman or Wonder Woman. And what this is doing is kind of showing how Amanda Waller is composing the team that is going to be taking on all of the superheroes that we know and love. It's an okay issue. I think it sets the stage without doing anything that's really going to, you know, tell the story or tell too much of the story. However, in that same nature, is it necessary? No, not really. It is kind of cool seeing how all of these things came to play, but I mean, it's kind of one of those like anything could have been the excuse as to why all of these different characters were pulled into the fold to take the fight to the superheroes. So kind of cool to see. Wholly unnecessary though. If you had a couple extra dollars to spend and maybe your pull list is a little light, consider picking it up though. All right, sticking at DC, we're going to talk Action Comics 1066, written by Joshua Williamson with artwork by Rafa Sandoval. So this is the penultimate issue of the House of Brainiac event that's been kind of teeter-tottering back and forth between Action Comics and Superman. And I think this does a really effective job at setting the stage for what the end game was going to be for this event. Joshua Williamson is doing something that I don't think he gets enough credit for in this book and this event, which is he's writing a really fun Big Two book. Sometimes Big Two books want to get bogged down and be, something that's really weighty and something that maybe leans more indie, and that's all well and good. That's fine. But this is kind of telling the story of superheroes doing super heroic things, and it really leans into that. And I really appreciate it. I think this is a really fantastic story, and I think it's kind of flying under the radar a little bit. I feel like I don't hear people talking about it as much as I would anticipate with the level of enjoyment that I'm getting out of the series. Part of that enjoyment does come by way of Rafa Sandoval's artwork, though. It has been stupendous and very, very consistent throughout the entirety of the series, albeit this issue is the exception, as some of the artistic duties are handed off to another person in the last couple pages of the issue. Still very high, high quality, though. And again, I think it just speaks volumes to how well this series has gone from the very onset of the House of Brainiac until, the ending, which we're going to be talking about very soon. So, Action Comics number 1066, if you picked it up, let me know your thoughts. All right, different universe, different event, same level of fun. Let's talk Blood Hunt #4, written by Jed MacKay with artwork by Pepe Larraz. This has been a very surprising series, as issue 1 really didn't do much for me, but I had room on the pull list, so I picked up issue 2 and I kind of liked it. I picked up issue 3, I liked it even more, and issue 4 has really cemented the fact that, okay, as an event, I'm really kind of enjoying this. I'm here, I'm along for the ride, and I want to know what's happening with Blade and the Avengers and everyone that's affected by this vampiric assault. So this issue really kind of starts setting the stage for why the things are happening the way that they're happening. And we've all kind of had the preconceived notion that even though Blade is behind this, that it really can't be Blade. And some answers are told within the pages of this book. I think that Pepe Larraz truly sings, though. I think that his artwork is at the same high level that we came to know and love from House of X, when he kind of really came onto the scene for a lot of people. The way that he chooses to lay out some of the pages and the way the panel work happens, where it's kind of like very landscape and stacked on one another here, it gives a very claustrophobic feel, and it gives a very cinematic look to the book. And when there are opportunities for characters to kind of break the panel, it really pops off of the page, and it really goes to show that there's a level of importance and a high level of care in the thought patterns behind how he's going to be laying out every single page. Again, super fun, very cinematic, very action-packed kind of story. Very surprising. I've kind of find myself enjoying it more and more. If you picked it up, let me know if you're thinking the same thing. All right, the next issue up, let's talk Daredevil number 10, written by Saladin Ahmed with artwork by Juan Cabal. I'm actually going to start with the artwork as opposed to the story here because I think that that is really the strength of not only this issue but the last couple issues. Juan Cabal is a very consistent artist, and when this book was first pitched, Aaron Cooter was the artist, and I really came to enjoy his artwork, and I think that he draws the heck out of Daredevil and all of the co-stars of the book. The problem is, he hasn't been on the book for maybe more than 3 to 4 issues here. Juan Cabal, I think at this point, should just be called the artist of this book because he is doing just as good a job and he's delivering more consistently by keeping this book on time. Now, the story still is revolving around Matt Murdock being a priest and kind of fighting the seven deadly sins, right? These demons that are taking control of some of the people within his life. And it's taking that biblical aspect and those biblical notions and really playing with those in a fun way. And it's kind of toying with Matt as the man of God, very true, a man of the cloth at this point. The story, though, it feels like it's getting a little bit convoluted. We've been 10 issues within this, and I'm kind of ready for this part of the story to wrap up. Daredevil, more so than any other book, has kind of toyed with the notion of not putting the toys back into the toy chest and really developing on what each creative team has done for the character and kind of handing off the baton. And I think it's done a really good job with that, but I'm ready to see Saladin Ahmed kind of take a different notion with the character. I'm ready for the second story arc to take place here, and it feels like he's setting the pieces up for his end game for this first arc, and in an exciting way. And it's nice to see some of the older characters that we know that Matt Murdock always kind of comes to blows with come back into the fold. But again, it's like I'm kind of ready for this part of the story to be over with. I'm kind of ready for things to kind of jump into some new exciting aspects because this has really been a continuation of how Chip Zdarsky ended his run. And I really want to see Saladin stretch his wings and kind of take this book to some place that's going to be new and fun and exciting. If you're reading Daredevil, let me know what your thoughts are. All right, the next issue up, let's talk Detective Comics 1086, written by Ram V with artwork by Stefano Raphael. This has been a really good issue, and I think it's an improvement over the last couple issues that we've gotten with Detective Comics, as the last few have really revolved around Batman getting back to Gotham, and the last couple issues in particular have all been about Batman talking about how he's back at Gotham. And that's all well and good, but I'm ready for some story progression. And we get a little bit of that in this issue. This issue revolves around Batman kind of putting the team together and really finalizing the plan that he has to stop the Orgums and stop the plan that they have to overtake Gotham and Arkham Asylum. It's been really good. I think the art changes have actually been to the benefit of most of the series here as they've kind of taken place as each individual arc of the overall story have kind of unfolded. And this issue does a really good job of that as well. Stefano really kind of brings a different aspect to this book. It's very gritty, very textured. It's nice. It fits everything, and it hasn't necessarily been the same artistic style throughout the entirety of Ram V's run on this, but I think it's been very, very good, and it's fit every approach to the story that's being told. Now, the parts that I don't really enjoy about this is part of the story revolves around the Joker. And I'll be completely honest, I'm burnt out by the Joker. I don't really care. And I know that every writer wants to take their stab at Bruce versus the Joker, but it's been done so many times that it's just the level of excitement that you would anticipate having, it isn't there for me. And the honest to God truth is that my level of excitement for Batman taking on the Orgums is at an all-time high. I want that to be the end game. That should be the end game. It doesn't always have to be the Joker, and it feels like we're leaning that way. That's okay, though. I'm not going to let that ruin the experience. I do feel like this is still kind of wrapping up, as I think we only have 2 to 3 issues left within this particular run, and I think it's kind of setting the stage for some really fantastic things coming down the pipeline. I'm excited to see where they're going to go with this. Hopefully, they don't lean too hard on the Joker, as I want this story to really be about Bruce and the Waynes and the Orgums and Gotham. Time will tell on that. I think this is a really effective issue, albeit a couple potential missteps, but time will tell on that. All right, the last son of Krypton is pulling double duty this week. Let's talk Superman number 15, written by Joshua Williamson, with artwork by Rafa Sandoval. So we spoke about Action Comics previously, and this is the ending of the House of Brainiac storyline. And I must say, now speaking about the last part of it, this has been awesome. This has been the most exciting event that I have read in comics probably all year at this point in 2024. It was super fun. It was all the same things I kind of spoke about in Action Comics, especially considering it's the same creative team of Joshua Williamson and Rafa Sandoval, and they paired so well together. And I think the pacing of not only this issue but the entirety of the event was just done so well. You kept getting different kind of action beats over and over and over. We didn't necessarily learn anything new about Clark. We didn't learn anything new about Brainiac, but I think that again, it was just like the pacing, the action beats, and it was more a reaffirmation of what we know about characters as opposed to some kind of new bold idea. And that's okay. When it's done as well as this, it's still going to be incredibly entertaining. So House of Brainiac has been stupendous. Superman has been stupendous. I can't wait to see what Joshua Williamson does next with the Absolute Powers event here, and even after that with Clark. And again, I'm here for all of it. So if you read Superman, let me know if you were thinking the same thing. Next book on the pull list, we have Ultimate Black Panther number 5, written by Brian Edward Hill with artwork by Carlos Nito. I really like what they're doing within the pages of this book. I feel like it's the most consistent book amongst the Ultimate line at Marvel Comics right now. And it's really kind of nice that I'm able to say that because we finally have started to see some artistic changes as Stefano Caselli has had to hand off the reins here for hopefully just a couple issues here to Carlos. But I gotta say, the quality does not dip at all. In fact, if I didn't see the name changes on there, I might have been able to skim through this and be like, oh, yeah, nothing happened. Same artistic team, totally, everything is fine. The storyline in this really continues off of the previous issue as we start to understand the nature of this green orb and this green energy source that the Moon Knights have been going after and that Black Panther has, taken control of. He's back in Wakanda now. We start to see some of the things that are going to be happening with this power source and some of the background information on it as he goes to see the witches that gave him kind of premonitions and kind of views into the future, and they explain the nature of this green energy source, which is kind of like the antithesis to vibranium. It's the yin of the yang. Really cool ideas being played with here. I'm really curious to see where they're going to take this and run with it because we still don't necessarily know what the end game is for this power source and how they're going to manifest it and use it. But we definitely do know that there could be deadly consequences that come along with it, and it could be universe scope. So, really cool, really fun issue. I really like that Brian Edward Hill is kind of taking his time telling this story, and he's giving you answers to questions as each issue unfolds while delivering new questions that need to be answered. Really masterful writing here. Really enjoying it. Black Panther number 5. If you read it, let me know your thoughts. Okay, jumping over to indies, we're going to talk Blood Squad 7, number 2, written by Joe Casey with artwork by Paul Fry. So again, this is the love letter to the 90s that we all got with issue 1, and it just continues that love letter into issue number 2 as well. It's all the excess, it's all the extreme violence, it's all the things that you loved about the 90s wrapped in a, more modern bow, more modern package, you would say. It's really great stuff. Joe Casey, I think, has a really good grasp on when to play the meta cards in this story because really it is a retelling of the young blood characters, but if they were in a modern stage, and they're not really the young blood characters because he can't use them, but they're kind of like fun versions of those characters. Paul Fry on this book as well is really doing a fantastic job. He evokes like feelings of Stuart Immonen, and I believe that even in the letter pages of this book, other people are writing in with the same kind of opinions, and it's really really true. It's the same kind of flow, it's the same kind of flair, the same grasp on anatomy. Really fantastic stuff, really enjoyable. The character work in here is really it's really great because Joe Casey is not afraid to write these characters as, quite frankly, as terrible as they can be sometimes. And when they are working within the excesses of 90s comics, trust me when I say they can be pretty terrible. So, again, issue number 2, really entertaining, really fun, definitely worth the read. If you picked it up, let me know your thoughts. With our next issue, let's talk Grommets number 2, written by Rick Remender and Brian Posehn, with artwork by Brett Parson. Man, this is just like nostalgia fuel. I loved this issue so much. When I was over on Pop Culture Philosophers, we were talking about this for the monthly comic review. And some of the things I spoke about was the fact that the nostalgia is so deep that you can kind of like, you feel like you can see the wood paneling on every single wall. You feel like you can smell the nicotine in the air, as the time frame on this book is right there in the mid 80s. As a child who grew up in that same time frame and experienced very similar things, it just brought me right back to being kind of that latchkey kid that was like survive or die when you were 7 years old. Um, Really, really masterfully done. I really love that it feels like Rick and Brian both have a very high level of love for this time era, and they very clearly grew up under the same circumstances. Now, and this revolves on the West Coast as well, so skate culture was at an all-time high, specifically there, and it just, you can tell this is just a love letter to all of those kind of things. Brett Parsons' artwork on this as well is just so energetic and so fluid and so fun. There are so many opportunities that he takes on here to just get wild and crazy with some of the layouts and the double page spreads. It's just really, really well done stuff. It's super, super fun. I love seeing all of the little nostalgic tinges that he draws into every page, like a Herb Trippy poster of the Hulk, different bands like Black Flag that you see in the background, and the old school Taco Bell logo when they go to the restaurant. It was so, so well done. Again, this is just like, if you're looking for fun comics, this is going to be the fun comic for you, especially if you grew up in that same time area. So if you did, leave me a comment down below. Let me know, and let me know what your thoughts are on this book. And from the Ghost Machine universe, let's talk Redcoat number 3, written by Jeff Johns with artwork by Brian Hitch. So this kind of continues to tell the exploration of Simon Pure and his immortality, and what he's come to find within the last issue and now in this issue is that his immortality can definitely be tested. I love how they're playing with historical figures and historical events, and kind of taking everything and turning it on its head and really playing with things in really fun ways. We see Benedict Arnold has come into the fold. We now see that George Washington has come into the fold in a very, very big way. And it's just, again, it's super, super fun. I love what they're doing, and I love how they're playing with all these historical figures, and they're definitely setting the pieces for more of that to continue happening as the series progresses. Our main character is still just as dim-witted as he ever has been. He still keeps finding himself in turmoil because of some of the choices that he's making. But at least now he has a partner who is, well, a little bit brighter than him in Alfred Einstein. So I love what they're doing with this book. I love the way that they're progressing with it. And I love how it's historical, but they're also mixing and matching magic to come along with these kind of things, because obviously that really does not dive into what we were told in our history books. But it's just such a fun inversion of what you would come to expect from the time era and some of the characters that we come to see. So Redcoat number 3 continues to be a lot of fun. The artwork is just like really, really great on this. But I'm more curious, what were you thinking? And with our next book up, let's talk Rook Exodus number 3, written by Jeff Johns with artwork by Jason Fabok. I feel like I'm a little bit in the minority on this book because everyone seems to be raving about how this is the book from the Ghost Machine universe. This is the one that everyone needs to read. And I'll be honest, it might be my least favorite. That's not to say it's a bad book by any means, but it just feels like it's a little bit cliche. This has kind of got like almost a Power Ranger feel to it at this point now, as the story is revolving around our main character, Rook, who wears a helmet that allows him to communicate with crows. He is a warden, and all of these wardens have similar powers. They have helmets that allow them to speak and control animals, and it was all for the well being of this new planet that they were on as they tried to control the habitat. So the planet is now dying, and the wardens are trying to still control this planet, albeit there is an enemy now that is starting to take control of some of these helmets, and they're bringing the battle directly to the wardens themselves. It's all very comic booky, and that's great. It's supposed to be. It is a comic book, and they are definitely leaning into the big two comic, things that we know and love, all the cliches and tropes, and it's great. It just feels a little bit leaning more towards that than it is leaning towards something that's new and exciting. I still enjoyed this a lot. I think that Jeff Johns is really crafting a great world here. It's just that it feels a little bit childish, if I have to choose the first word that comes to mind. All of the ideas, again, they feel very Power Rangery. You kind of, you put on helmets, you gain powers, you have to save the world, and let's toss some villains in there for good fun as well. So Rook Exodus number 3, it wasn't everything that I thought it was going to be. Still a lot of fun though. Now, next up, let's talk a book that had probably 0% fun. Let's talk The Sacrificers number 9, written by Rick Remender with artwork by Max Fiumara. When I say no fun, I don't mean that as a knock. This book should not have been fun. And with the tone of the entire series, it should not have been fun. We're seeing the continuing story of Pigeon, who was a sacrifice that was meant to be made to the gods to continue their youth and vibrancy, as he has taken on the powers of the gods himself, and now he is starting his path of revenge, and he starts taking out god after god after god. And it's a really scary story. He has developed into a character that you really empathized with and sympathized with, and he's turned into this character where it's almost getting to the scary point where you're like, oh my gosh, can I root for this person? Because he deserves the things that he's doing. He deserves to get his revenge. I can't say that he doesn't, with all the things that have happened to him and his family and his newfound friends. But you can see that absolute power corrupts absolutely, and you can start to see the wheels turning in Pigeon, where he's not caring the circumstances behind what happens, and he's not caring the circumstances that pulled other people into the wrongdoings that were happening. He is just on a blood fueled path of revenge, and nothing is going to get in his way. The innocence is completely gone from this character, and you can see how easily a person can be corrupted. So I say all that stuff because it's written so well in this book that it's just like so apparent on the page here. Rick Remender is really crafting a fantastic story that I just enjoy issue after issue after issue. And it's really making me care for the characters in ways where I don't want him to have to go on this path. I just want happiness for our characters. But it does not seem that we're going to get that within these pages here. But it's a really great continuing exploration on all these characters from a lot of different viewpoints and a lot of different aspects that I am totally along for the ride for. All right, with our runner up pick of the week, let's talk William of Newbury, number 2, written and drawn by Michael Avon Oeming. This is such a fantastic continuation off of what we've seen in the first issue, as Michael Avon Oeming is just like telling such a fantastic story from start to finish, both with his narration and with his visuals as well. They are just married so well, and this is one of the best examples of that writer artist duo when someone has like the full grasp of the story they want to tell and they can tell it themselves. This is just like pitch perfect. We see the continuing story of William as he's moving through the townships and ridding the land of evil on his journey with his crime-filled partner, I will say. And we get this great look at his continued innocence along with uh, his mastery of exorcism, if you will. It's a really great exploration. This has kind of been pitched as Usagi meets Hellboy, and I think that's a really good comparison, albeit there's just something so magical about his naivety, like the main character. He really takes things at face value, and it's kind of fun seeing the more humanistic aspects of him, where he is like not afraid at all of ghosts, ghouls, goblins, and demons, but a spider or a snake might set him off. that's where his other character, his partner in crime, comes into play here as well, as he comes from a totally different background, and you're starting to see some of William's innocence rub off on this criminal as he's trying to strip away those things from his past and maybe subconsciously start to become a better person. Now, Michael's artwork on this, I think, is just like something really to behold, as the colors, the big thick inky lines on here are just done so well. And I think some of the best aspects of this is that with the more simplistic approach to the artwork, I think that Oming's real mastery comes from way of really telling a clean, distinct foreground, middle ground, and background. Everything that pops off of the page is intended to pop off the page, and the colors really come into play and really bring that forward as well. But if he didn't already lay the pages out in that manner, I don't think it would really fit as well as it does. This is a very, very high level of art, even though it's a simplistic approach to that artwork, and I really have come to grow to love it more and more as I've gotten older and older. This is only issue 2, but they're really continuing the story, and they're giving us more and more with each issue, and they're not dangling anything in front of us. They're continuing the story on in a really great way that's just kind of going to keep its hooks in me over and over. I'm enticed. I loved this issue. I love the story they're telling, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say about it. And finally, with our top comic of the week, let's talk Rare Flavors number 6, written by Ram V with artwork by Felipe Andrade. What a masterful ending. Like, at the end of issue number 5, I really didn't know how they were going to wrap things up because it felt like such a finale. It felt like such an ending, a climax. But we never really looked back at the actual story itself, and we never looked back at not our main character, the demon necessarily, but the filmmaker, our co-main character. And this does a really great job at really turning the camera back on him and telling his ending, his finality to all of the things that have happened. This issue just like it revolves so much around misunderstanding and remorse, but also kind of learning things through misunderstanding and kind of your own character development and your own growth and kind of reflecting on things that you did as a as a youth and you've done through your life and how it's driven some of the changes in you. And I think that the main character in this, like seeing his level of growth and seeing the look back at that level of growth, is just done so well. This is one of those stories where I definitely loved each and every issue, but there was a natural reaction to compare this to The Many Deaths of Layla Starr, and I didn't feel like it was up to the same level up until this issue. The ending really just fit so well and it just landed so nicely that this has cemented itself as being of the same caliber of the top comics that have come out from Ram V in the past here, including The Many Deaths of Layla Starr. Great issue, fantastic ending, fantastic artwork by Felipe. I think that this is a team that should continue to tell these types of stories and be given the time to tell them the way that they want to, as they have in these past 2 series. I just can't wait to see what they put out next. So, Rare Flavors number 6, the top comic of the week. If you read it, let me know your thoughts. All right, well, that's all I got for you this week, but I'm more curious. What did you read and what were your thoughts? Do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe on this and be part of the panel. Leave me a comment down below and let me know your thoughts on all the comics we discussed. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next week.